Good evening, Free Assange Movement, and welcome to the 33rd Free Assange Vigil. I'm Christy Doff, and I'm joined with my co-hosts Steve Poikinen and Andrew Smith. Taylor Hudak will be joining us a little later in this evening. So we are going to get started with a few stats. I'm Christy Doff, and I'm joined with my co-host Steve Poikinen. First off, it is 342 days for Chelsea Manning to be in jail, and she is up to $233,000 in fines. We are 313 days since the brutal arrest of Julian Assange, WikiLeaks publisher and award-winning journalist. He was arrested from the Ecuadorian Embassy after Ecuador's government illegally terminated his asylum. It has been a total of 3,360 days of arbitrarily detention of Julian Assange in the UK, and we are 4 days away from the beginning of his extradition hearing in the UK. So we have a lot of news to get to and a lot of updates before that extradition hearing starts. But first, we do have our first guest tonight. Eric Jackman is a podcaster, comedian, and nationally known Donald Trump impersonator. He spent the last year working with Tulsi Gabbard's campaign for president as her New Hampshire cultural attaché. You can check out his YouTube channel at Jackman Radio and his comedy material at www.jackmantrump.com. Welcome, Eric, and thanks for joining the Free Assange Vigil.
Yeah, absolutely, Christy. Thanks for the introduction there and you guys inviting me on. I'm happy to be here and connect with like-minded individuals who are, pissed off and not accepting of the way things are going and fighting for our whistleblowers and our truth tellers. So I'm real happy to be here with you guys.
We're very happy to have you as well. Eric, let's I do want to get into what was going on with this whole Trump and Dana Rohrabacher and Julian Assange and a pardon deal thing. But before that, while working with Tulsi's campaign, on the inside of the campaign, because I haven't been able to ask this to a lot of people who would have an answer for me. Is there did you get a sentiment of any kind of general feel within the campaign, how the people there feel about the Julian Assange situation, how they feel about Chelsea Manning? Is it discussed at all? Or yeah, how did that play out? How does that play out?
Yeah, well, I know when I first connected with Tulsi, I had her on my show, Jackman Radio. I sat down and filmed an interview with her, and we did ask her kind of in general about whistleblowers, and I mentioned John Kiriaku's case. She wasn't familiar with it, or had heard of it, but I think in general, Tulsi is very receptive and supportive of whistleblowing and people bringing to light misdeeds, whether it's in government, the military. Certainly, as someone with her background, having served in Iraq, she's aware of the disclosures and things that came out with WikiLeaks and all the misdeeds and the terrible stuff that happened. So I know she's definitely in favor of transparency and things coming to light. And I personally never had like a conversation with her specifically about Assange or anything like that. But I know when asked about it, she's very supportive of Assange, and I feel she doesn't feel that that's been handled properly and that he's really been given a fair hearing or take in by the media and everything. And also she's definitely big on the First Amendment and protections for free press and everything. I mean, obviously we're seeing with Trump, and both parties have an authoritarian bend when it comes to real truth coming out, and a lot of them won't even acknowledge or recognize Julian Assange as real legitimate press. So I know as far as acknowledging that, Tulsi's definitely on board with that. But yeah, I didn't talk much with her about that. But overall, my sense after spending a year with her is that out of all the other candidates, I don't think you're going to do better than Tulsi Gabbard.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't. No, I'm not endorsing any major party candidate. I'm actually I think everybody in the Zoom chat right here that's part of Action for Assange right now is a delegate for Adam Kokesh, because he's a friend of the show and because he wants to abolish the federal government in 72 hours. And I have a hard time, finding somebody with a better platform than pardon all political prisoners and, legalize drugs and abolish the federal government. But when it comes down to the Democrats running, I if I had to pick one, it would probably be Tulsi Gabbard, because Mike Gravel isn't running anymore. Normally what I do is I write in Cynthia McKinney every year. I voted for her in 2008. Jason Burmis and I have had this conversation. We both got called racist because we didn't vote for Obama. You're like, no, I voted for Cynthia McKinney. And like, people do not understand that she's a black woman. Like they hear Cynthia McKinney and they probably think, some, New England Irish chick. And, I'm serious. People don't pay attention to this stuff. I got called racist by people I grew up with.
Right.
Who knew better because I didn't vote for Barack Obama. But no, Tulsi Gabbard is unique among politicians because she'll actually show up where she says she's going to show up, even if it's not a photo op specific moment. She did go to Standing Rock. There's some questions that I have about so you're probably aware of this, but over the last couple of years, very subtly, the term national security changed to national interest, and people in politics don't really discuss things in terms of national security anymore. It's national interest, because I think the cat's out of the bag. National security means we're going to spy on you and bomb brown people. I think that people generally understand that now, so they have to use softer language. George Carlin would be having a fucking field day with 2020. Like, I don't think he saw this coming, and I think that he was close to a prophet. But I've heard Tulsi speak on national interest, and it's the language of soft imperialism to me, the way that it sounds. And you're not here to defend Tulsi's campaign or be a Tulsi surrogate. I'm just trying to have a general conversation with you, and then we'll get to the Dana Rohrabacher thing, because I would really like your take on that. How do you feel about the term national security coming to, being changed to be national interest, and having it gives people the ability to apply softer, more broader terms to we're going to spy on you and bomb brown people?
Yeah, well, absolutely. Speaking for myself, I mean, George Carlin was right on the money, man. We sanitize horrible things. When we assassinate and murder people like we did with Wilkie there and his son, that's outright and overt assassination and murder. We call it neutralizing. We neutralize the targets. They were HVT, high value targets. It turns into an acronym. So a lot of people don't even know what the hell an HVT is. But yeah, there's no doubt about it, man. The national security state, and really if you really boil the thing down to the layers, what it is, it's business, and it's corporate interest. And there's industries that are up all around the war machine, that their job is to smooth out the nomenclature and to streamline the words into our consciousness. So, whether they're doing it every night on TV, they're doing it on social media, they're doing it in the movies. I mean, certainly we know about Catherine Bigelow and Zero Dark 30 and Hurt Locker and all those movies with working in complete tandem with the CIA and the Pentagon. So it's done in any number of ways. And it leads to, as you guys know, kind of a collective apathy. I mean, it's a collective shoulder shrug, and it's like, yeah, those are just some people 8,000 miles away that threaten our way of life. And we're so removed from it and detached from it that we just trust what the government's doing, that they're doing it for the right reasons and they're keeping us safe. And we'd rather not know about it. We should keep our head in the sand. So it's alarming and it's sad. It's maddening. And it's frustrating because, obviously people who are watching this, and you guys, you do a lot of research and you do your homework. Our government, in the name of the national interest and national security, does horrible, horrible things all over the world. And a lot of the times we don't hear about it until years later, 5 years later, 10 years later, until either someone leaks it or some cavalier journalist actually does their job and digs up the information about it and puts it out there, or someone from the inside, whether it's a Manning or, where Assange gets the info, or, whoever it is, whatever avenue it is that we get it. Either way, I mean, we saw with these Afghanistan papers that Washington Post, who obviously we can't trust Washington Post, it's a Bezos CIA, vessel. They put out great work about the Afghanistan papers, and what do we get? We got a collective shrug. What was the score to the ball game? Who's in the Super Bowl? That's all people care about. So nomenclature and the manufacturing of consent is a very powerful thing and a hard thing for us to overcome. So I will say this, Tulsi is aware of all that. She has her military background, and that's part of her identity and part of who she is. So some of that could play into the language that she uses and talks about. But really, big picture, she sees it and she's alarmed by it. And the main thrust of her campaign is to call attention to it, and really the dollars and cents figures she always talks about. This is a great thing she always brought up here in New Hampshire, and I always brought it up when I introduced her, is just the simple fact we're spending $4 billion a month in Afghanistan. So you round that up, over 12 months, that's 48 billion. I round it up to 50 billion. I say to people, what could each state do with an extra $1 billion if we shut down Afghanistan, put that money back into the hands of the people and use it to help with the opioid crisis, water in Flint, repairing our roads. We could do so many, every state could do so many things with $1 billion. So, foreign policy is domestic policy, and language that is used is very important. And Orwell is rolling in his grave.
And if I could, just to define national interest, because that's a term that really bothers me. It is the merger of corporate and political interests, of economic and political power. It is the textbook definition of fascism being used to describe the actions of our country. And I just think every time we talk about that, it's super important.
Oh, yeah. And to your real quick, I have this is my working theory, and I'm actually going to write a book about it. But because you mentioned manufacturing confusion, it is my belief that, or manufacturing consent, is my belief that consent was manufactured no later than as the ink was drying on the Patriot Act, and the job of the media and the intelligence agencies that steer them is to now manufacture confusion, which is a 24-hour news cycle of nonstop division, but always reinforcing the same narrative, where you've 100%. Got neoliberals who are on the exact same side as the QAnon crowd when it comes to Iran, when it comes to the power of the free market, when it comes to punishing quote unquote socialist countries. The
war crimes in Syria that have been proven to be based on a false flag attack.
Right. Well, Caitlin Johnson raises a good point when she says that the neoliberals are okay with us attacking Syria and the Q crew is okay with us attacking Iran. And that's where they butt heads, but it's still, we should go and blow up brown people. It's not, this is a empire in decline, and we need to drastically change the way that we think, that we legislate, that we live, how we view communities, and what what they can be capable of, lest we bring about some sort of planetary holocaust in the form of irreversible climate collapse. But that also is largely a government problem, especially when you incorporate geoengineering. I'm sorry, Garrett, go ahead.
Yeah, same ends, different means for those two crowds, because definitely your Q people are big Christian Zionists. They're cheerleaders for Israel. They can do no wrong. We have to defend them. Your Alex Jones people, your Jerome Corsi's of the world, they're big on the Q thing, and they come at it from a kind of biblical Christian end times perspective. And then your neoliberals who, the Hillarys, the Obamas of the world, drew the red line in Syria, and we have to support regime change in Syria and get rid of Assad. He gassed his own people. So absolutely, man, that's a good point there. Definitely same ends, different means.
So if you could for a little bit, could you talk about the podcast that you do?
Yeah, so Jackman Radio is a show I do with my twin brother Mike, and we've had it going for 5 years. We've had on some pretty cool guests. It started as just an audio podcast recorded in our house, and then really this last year we focused on a video component of it and working on building up our YouTube channel. And we wanted to interview as many presidential candidates as we could. So we have a great brewery here in our hometown of Peterborough called Post and Beam Brewing. Give them a nice plug. And they're our sponsor, and they let us film in their brewery on the days that they're closed. So with all the campaigns being here in New Hampshire, my brother and I just reached out to as many as we could, and lined up some really cool interviews. The first big one we did was with Andrew Yang, actually, in February of 2019, when he was really just kind of starting to get known, and it was a week before he went on Rogan. So we caught him just before he got pretty big. And, we come at it from a nonpartisan view. We like to have a real conversation. And if they'll have a beer with us, we like to have a beer with them. We call it Politics and Pints. And basically, my brother and I will just do our research and prep for the interview and come up with some questions we want to ask our guests and try and have like an organic conversation with them about why they're running for president, their background, tie in current events. And then obviously we like to tie in the issues that we're passionate about: foreign policy, war, the surveillance state, regime change, stuff like that. So, it's pretty serious stuff, but we like to do, my brother and I both do impressions. So we like to try and infuse some comedy in there too, because I'm sure, as you guys find, when you get pretty deep into this stuff, it can be pretty depressing and sad. So sometimes it's good to make a little light of it and inject a little humor. So we kind of come at it with that approach, and we're willing to sit down with really anybody. I mean, one of our last guests was former Governor Mark Sanford of South Carolina, about as conservative as they come, and definitely on the right side of things. But we had a good chat with him. We had a beer with him and found him to be a nice guy. So really one of our goals is to break through the team baseball, as our friend Jason Burms calls it. These teams, we have to be on teams. It's got to be left versus right, blue versus red, socialist versus capitalist. And Tulsi says this a lot too. I mean, labels, I'm sick and tired of labels, man. You put a label on yourself and you're boxing yourself in, and you're excluding yourself from a marketplace of ideas. So we're of the idea that no party or group or label has a monopoly on good ideas. So if someone has a good idea or counter to the way you think, it's good to talk about it and have a open conversation about it and not scream at each other. So we're trying to make that in vogue again.
If I could recommend a couple presidential candidates to try to get on,
Sure.
Joe Kishore, he's running for the Socialist Equality Party. Adam Kokesh, he's running as a libertarian. Dario Hunter is running as a Green Party member. And Mark Charles is running as an independent. He's personally one of my favorite candidates. Full disclosure, I am a state chair for the Green Party of Ohio. But those are 4 awesome candidates that, if you have a chance to interview, I think would be awesome, because they're so far removed from the standard conversation, just in the way that they look at ideas or look at issues and have ideas to solve things. So I think giving them a spotlight, because the way that they can personally express themselves in the marketplace of ideas, so to speak, is incredible. Like Mark Charles, one of his big platform pieces is essentially just ending prison slavery and removing slavery completely from our country, and changing the fundamental wording in the Constitution to change from man to human, and to switch all of these little characteristics, because as it's written, it does not represent everybody. And so he has a very core, essential foundation belief about how we can better represent liberty. And part of it is ending the legal slave trade that's represented in the 13th Amendment.
Wow, if we got rid of prison labor, who would run Michael Bloomberg's campaign and do his phone calls?
Absolutely.
So Eric, we do have some questions for you in the chat. One of the first questions, has any candidate thus far said anything that has alarmed you so far in the campaign?
Wow, that's a good question. I sat down with Marianne Williamson, and nothing she said alarmed me. I was just really fascinated by her and her energy, and you know, she obviously was an outside the box candidate, but she talked about things in kind of an organic and a holistic view, which was actually really refreshing. I know she kind of got raked through the coals and given a bad rap in the media because, you know, they call her the Crystal Lady and the Orb Queen and all that nonsense. But Marianne, I found to be really thoughtful and engaging, and I really admired her approach to politics. And you know, she talked about a Department of Peace, which was interesting. It was something Dennis Kucinich talked about when he ran in 04 and 08. So yeah, I found her refreshing. But like as far as alarming goes, I don't know. I could tell you I was alarmed at how robotic and Christian Bale from American Psycho like that Pete Buttigieg was in person. He
yeah.
that dude
photo comparison.
every inch, just that guy is just a fraud. I mean, you know, everything about him is manufactured and fake and planned and Pleasantville, you know, just phony. The guy is such a phony, as you all know. But
I got smeared in the Daily Beast for my opinions on little CIA Pete there.
Did you? All right, man. That's a badge of honor.
Yeah.
But
and by Tim Pool.
Nice. But yeah, I was alarmed by that, and I'm just kind of alarmed by.
I always said about Pete Buttigieg. I'm so sorry, my internet is so bad. Just be talking at the same time, but I noticed with him in particular, he is so angry. Like I think like behind the scenes, he is the most angry person. I could just tell whenever he's questioned by the different journalists who are asking these debate questions, I could just tell that there's this underlying anger.
Yeah, that's I think that's pretty dead on. I mean, there's a real sense of entitlement and arrogance about Pete Buttigieg, that the way he carries himself and conducted his events, and his people are just lemmings, just automatons. The guy doesn't say anything. I mean, he's zero substance, just platitudes and bullshit. So
the one event of Pete's I went to in New Hampshire, I felt like I was watching somebody who had meticulously studied the last all 8 years of Obama and kind of rolled it into this Obama light. Like the cadence was the same, just the way he told the stories. And what was alarming to me wasn't so much him, but it was the way the audience was just sort of like eating it up and just like cheering it on. And that was alarming to me, that not everybody in the room could see through it. They were just, they were loving it.
Yep. He's Mayo Pete. He's the Obama impersonator. He's like, picture that first day, Donald Trump's no longer president. It sounds like Obama.
It does.
You hear it and you're like, Jesus, this
heard this before.
We've heard this before, and that ended up being hollow and frivolous and bullshit. So definitely alarmed by Pete, alarmed that there's so many people he conned here in New Hampshire. He got a lot of people to vote for him. His signs were all over our state. And when I asked people, you know, what specifically about him do you support? What about his foreign policy? What about his drug policy? They had nothing for you. They couldn't give you any specifics. So
I like what he says, and he doesn't mean to eat.
Yeah, he's nice. He's nice looking, and Chasten's so cute, you know?
So you said did you say his staff were automatons, or the people who were watching him? Because check us out. I mentioned earlier, like before we were live, that I grew up in Indiana. My sister's, one of her really good friends growing up, is on his staff and does something with data. Like it's a senior position, high. I'm not gonna say her name, but you probably figure it out. I could see that, you know, I could see that from her. Like she had a very, I don't know, tuned in drive to her, where externalities were basically a distraction. And if, you know, she heard the message, then she believed and followed the message.
Yeah, well, yeah, that was like the people here in New Hampshire who I knew that were supporters of him or were going to vote for him, or the people I saw at his events. They're just, yeah, they kind of had like a gloss about him, looked at him like a messiah figure, and there was no substance to it. There's no meat on the bones there, man. So, yeah, it was the people I knew.
It's like somebody put a talking points generator chip like into his neck, you know, and he gets a new shot with it every time he has to go out on camera. Maybe sometimes he gets to keep the same chip for like a couple of days, and they recycle the chips because stump speeches are always the same anyway. But
give it like 8 to 12 months.
What now?
I was going to say, give it like 8 to 12 months and it'll come out that he was the first human experiment of the neural link that Elon Musk made.
The first Manchuria Global, right. Raymond Prentice Shaw. Yes. Pete Buttigieg, Major Pete Buttigieg. Yes.
Man.
Yeah.
No, and he's still a part of the Navy intelligence. Like, he's still Navy intelligence because he's a reservist.
Yeah, well, when I met him, because I tried to get him on my show, I knew it was a long shot. So I had about a minute with him one-on-one, and I said, Pete, I host a show. I kind of blew a little smoke at him. I said, I love that you're a young guy running. I'm a young guy. You're only 4 or 5 years older than me. It's great that millennial representation in this race. But, I've got to ask you, what were you doing in Afghanistan? And I did a little research and saw you were looking into the Bank of Kabul. What was that all about? And he looked at me and he's like, wow, you've done your homework. And he kind of looked over at his staffer and kind of gave him a look like, get this guy the hell away from me. So, yeah. The whole thing's weird. The whole Mayor Pete thing's weird, for sure.
So we keep having Taylor cut in and cut out on us. So that's fun. But so real quick to shout out our DC actions. On Monday, we're all going to be getting together in Washington, DC. Well, Christy, Steve, and I. Taylor is still going to London and working with a couple people over there to do live streams and all those fun things outside of Belmarsh prison. Has interviews set up and is going to be our on-the-ground source for real information there. We still have a GoFundMe link. We did hit our goal. But all the money we get in now just helps us make everything that much better. We're still have a couple pieces of sound equipment that we're trying to get for DC and a few other things. So if you can pitch in, I would appreciate it. Or donate to the Courage Foundation or to Chelsea Manning directly.
Yeah, so we are planning, and if you're on Twitter, you've probably seen the schedule floating around, but we're planning to start out at the White House. We're going to march to Trump Tower and the DOJ. Tuesday, we're going to go and hit up mainstream media locations in Washington, D.C., and we have a nice list and some actions to plan on getting the mainstream media to accurately cover Julian Assange's extradition hearing. On Wednesday, we will be outside the detention center where Chelsea Manning and Jeremy Hammond are. Thursday, we're planning on being on Capitol Hill. And then Friday, we're going to march from White House to Trump Tower to DOJ again. And we got some surprises planned in there, some extra things we are planning, and we're excited to show you guys. If you're anywhere near the DC area, can come out any of those days. You don't have to make it the whole week. Andrew, Steve, and I would love to peacefully protest in support of Julian Assange with you.
Do you want to go in?
I'm in the process of pulling up that picture of of Pete Buttigieg and Christian Bale.
It's really too good not to share. That's the one. Misty was the one that tweeted, and she thoughtfully retweeted it for us tonight. It's really great.
It's so on point, man. You get a weird vibe from that dude. He's just so detached and so automaton.
So my joke about Pete was that if you could create a CIA Democrat in a lab, it would be Pete Buttigieg, because the CIA Democrats are a thing. World Socialist website did like 3 very exhaustive articles on it. There were over 50 or right at 50 that were running in 2018. Like 27 of them wound up getting elected. But they have a direct, like they're coming from being a paid employee of an intelligence agency to office. There's no, I mean, like, it's hard to say without getting really angry.
The crazy thing to me is people don't even realize that that's what we're competing against. Like
Right.
that's like the whole point of local organizing and the whole point of coming at this from a like get in where you fit in kind of standpoint. Because the only way to stop people that are infiltrating our society in a way like that is to literally just stand up to them in the local levels, fight at the policy standpoints, get your police departments and sheriff's departments informed, run for mayor's offices, give them bonuses for working over 32 hours in a week, get them on your side, and then use them as a way to have a legal monopoly on violence against pipelines, and use them as a way to have a way to stand against immigration forces coming into cities with their SWAT teams now. So there's so many ways that we can seize control of our communities, but it just takes people to get involved at that local level to plant that seed and get other people involved with them. Anyway, CIA Democrats.
That's funny.
I started talking about it, and then I got the slow internet, and then I got the little message said my internet connection is unstable. So Eric, meet Kevin. If you don't know, in the live chat, Kevin is what we decided to name the NSA or whatever agent has to monitor the show in the chat. We hope he's learning something. We would like him to become a whistleblower. We would like Kevin's friends to become whistleblowers.
Kevin will be in DC. We can meet up with you and help you get your docs to WikiLeaks.
We'll change modulate your voice. We'll close out your purse, just shoot you from the side. I can give you a hoodie. You can pull it up,
Got a green screen.
Yeah, we can make it work. We can become a whistleblower.
Kevin will become our Q. He's going to become our Q.
Maybe Kevin is
but accurate.
Kevin Anon.
But real.
Kevin on. Yeah.
I'm for that. I think Q is just a massive psyop that did almost for the activated right what Barack Obama did for the anti-war left. And it's just make them not come out anymore.
Yeah, just a kind of Q. Yeah, I mean, it could be like an Eric Prince Blackwater style psych operation. Someone who has experience working in the dark arts of disinfo and then psych operations. That's what I think it is. I mean, you think about, like I mentioned earlier, the people who were the big proponents of it, like Jerome Corsi and the InfoWars. It's
Elizabeth Voss calls it hope porn.
Yeah.
There's a whole underground community now built around that. Like they funneled all of this independent journalism power of the internet and then just threw it hard to the right in this limited disclosure psychological operation that they even brag about. They talk about how it's a military intelligence operation. Like they are telling these people, this is a psychological operation against you. And they're like, yeah, what are you posting next?
Well, what's funny, I've been to about 6 Trump rallies here in New Hampshire. And when you go, Q leaves the internet and becomes IRL in real life. And you have people wearing Q shirts, holding big cutout things that say Q. And,
what I'm hoping to do, and I've talked about it on Burmes's channel and on our channel, the only way to get Julian free is to, in my opinion, like the biggest, easiest, simplest way is to engage the Trump base right now. to go there and pass out 400 free Julian Assange signs, handmade Julian Assange t-shirts, and either make his campaign take them away or let them in. And then it starts to get this message and makes it more of a platform issue and puts it in Donald Trump's face, because that's the only time he interacts with the public.
Yeah,
is true. When he does these rallies. And if he has to look at a free Assange thing and not acknowledge it, that starts to put people's faith into question, or at least in the whole game of charades that would make us enough of an actor to have made him have to respond in such a way to free Julian to keep up the charade that he is fighting the deep state.
Yeah, well, also, and maybe reminding Trump world and Trump himself, the guy wouldn't be president if it wasn't for Julian Assange.
He went from I love the WikiLeaks, we need more WikiLeaks.
I love WikiLeaks.
Yeah, so I never heard of Julian Assange, or and then his Justice Department picks up where the Obama administration left off. Those charges were lying around for a number of years. They found out about the secret warrant in 2012, I believe. They started drawing it up pretty much immediately after the release of the Afghan war diaries. But he picked it up and ran with it. And his spook attorney general, who was a spook attorney general during George H.W. Bush's administration, who pardoned the people responsible for Iran-Contra and the massive delivery of helicopters full of cocaine into black and brown and poor white neighborhoods all over America, disrupting the family unit, destabilizing the country from the inside. That's that guy, Bill Barr, that guy. He, is going forward with these charges. We found out today that, and I guess so I'm trying to recover the audio from it. I had Mohammed El-Mazi on Slow News Day earlier today. It was the first time I'm using this computer. I got it from Sleepy Josh, our tech guy. I interviewed him. It went well. I have no audio. But he was in the courtroom today for this. He writes for Sputnik and the Canary and the interregnum.net. We've had him on the Vigil before. He's a fantastic writer. If you're not following him, you should. Mohammed El-Mazi. He was in the courtroom today, and he has a legal background too. Before he became a journalist, he was on the way to lawyering it up. And so he understands the legal argybargy that takes place during a case management hearing. And at some point in the case management hearing, Julian Assange's lawyer made, just a statement, not with any kind of tone or inflection in his voice, but as he had read off every other paper, mentioned, and I'm not going to misquote him, he has an article about it, you can read it. But the gist of it was, what about the thing with Dana Rohrabacher? They're trying to figure out what they can introduce into evidence. What's going to be admissible? What about the thing with Dana Rohrabacher and the alleged process to a pardon from Donald Trump? Mo said, some of the reporters didn't even catch it because they were so glazed over from tedious courtroom proceedings. They were talking outside, they were trying to process it, and there are so many different headlines about what happened. The UK Independent has one of the worst headlines imaginable. Susie Dawson tweeted it out earlier today. The Daily Beast wrote an article that Mo, from the title down, is his words, very strong misrepresentation and false and bullshit. The Daily Beast lies in the title, lies in the first paragraph, lies in the site. It's all they have. And yet all we really know is that in 2017, California Congressman Dana Rohrabacher, who never met a bribe he didn't like, and this is, factual. He left office under high suspicion and scandal and ethics violations. Dana Rohrabacher went to visit Julian Assange. This is pre-indictment, pre-Espionage Act charges. And according to the Wall Street Journal, they discussed whether or not the Russians did it. What took place, according to Dana Rohrabacher, is that he had said there was a process he could see about arranging or working with Trump. He was there on his own, not on Donald Trump's orders, but there on his own as his own man, just came up with this idea all by himself. Dana Rohrabacher, not one of the smartest guys in the room, came up with this idea all by himself to go and visit Julian Assange and say, there may be a process to a pardon for you if you can make a statement on the record that the Russians were not responsible for these leaks. Julian, 10 months prior, had been on Sean Hannity's show, a number of other outlets, and said the leaks were not a state actor. As far as I'm willing to comment, we don't let on who our sources are. That's not how we work. Wasn't a state actor. Rohrabacher was pushing him to say it was definitely not the Russians. The narrative at the time is the narrative it is right now. And it was right in the middle of the Mueller report, and everybody wanted the smoking gun to be WikiLeaks and Russia worked with the Donald Trump campaign to get him elected. That was the trifecta there. But that's all we know. We weren't there. We don't know with any certainty if Rohrabacher was there as his own man or if he was there on orders of the president. We don't know even that the promise of a pardon was on the table. All that's ever been admitted to was, we can see about the possibility of arranging, and that's it. Well, but you read any headline about it, or you look on Twitter about it, and unless you go to WikiLeaks or you go and read Mohammed Almazy's article from earlier today, that's all we have. The primary source is what came out of the courtroom, and whatever Rohrabacher is willing to admit.
Yeah, well, Rohrabacher said he had met with General Kelly, who was Trump's chief of staff at the time, and had communication with him. And what's not clear is if Rohrabacher was pitching this to Kelly to give to Trump, or if Trump was going through Kelly because he knew Rohrabacher was cozy with the Russians and could maybe work something out with Assange to kind of get him to toe a narrative or toe a line. Yeah, you're right, man. It's hard to really know like what happened and who's telling the truth and who's lying. I mean, the spin, by the time it gets to our ears, it's been through so many meat grinders of people putting their spin on it and having their angles, and I don't know.
So, just a couple things I just wanted to add as we're talking about this. WikiLeaks did do a few tweets on this today, and the first one said chronologically it matters. The meeting and the offer were made 10 months after Julian Assange had already independently stated Russia was not the source of the DNC publication. The witness statement is one of the many bombshells from the defense to come. And after that, they tweeted the meeting and the offer were made prior to Assange's indictment. If you really want to know what this is about, tune in to court on Tuesday, the 25th. That'll be the second day of the extradition hearing next week.
Well, then you gotta wonder about Seth Rich. I mean, how does that play into this? Assange keeping cards close to the chest. Is he protecting Seth Rich? I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
I think he's just protecting a source. I think that his journalistic integrity is just, he does not reveal sources. He will answer who they're not, like, no, it's not a state actor. But he, as an individual, and as WikiLeaks, the organization, has said, even in these situations, they will never reveal their sources.
That's something I think the QAnon crowd and a lot of people forget is how principled Julian Assange is, and the principles that he founded WikiLeaks on, and that he, for a number of years now, has been arbitrarily detained and suffered because of those principles and his refusal to step away from them. So yeah, he's ultimately defending and protecting a source, maybe not defending, protecting a source. And yeah, that there's been numerous times where there's been rumors that he's going to reveal sources and, you know, come to the US and testify and blow everything open because he's going to give up all these sources. And it always makes me laugh when those rumors go around, because that's not who Julian Assange is. That's not what WikiLeaks is about. And they've prided themselves on protecting sources, even to the point of where they're protecting sources that aren't their own, in the case of Edward Snowden.
Have you guys heard about the Cy Hirsch audio of him talking about how it was Seth Rich?
Yeah, if you go to my channel, Slow News Day Podcast, if you type it in on the search bar, I have it in one of my playlists. I've got the full, like, 22, 26 minutes of it, unless they took it down. I haven't checked for a while.
Kevin.
But, huh?
Kevin took it down.
It's possible. I'll take a look right now.
So yeah, I mean, what do you make of that? What do you make of the Cy Hirsch audio?
Well, I mean, hell, we could play it all right now. It's here. Maybe we should do that for one of these. Play the full Cy Hirsch audio.
If we could, yeah.
I mean, nobody's gonna claim it. I don't know. What do I make of it? I've looked into this pretty thoroughly, and we've had Ray McGovern on a number of times, who was issued a subpoena in part of, Butowski's multiple lawsuits against so many different media outlets. Like, everybody who had commented on or had something to do with saying that the DNC leaks were in fact leaks and not hacks that happened over a computer, have been issued a subpoena for this if they were, known media figure. Cassandra Fairbanks has a subpoena over this through a lawsuit where NPR is one of the named outlets. So, to the best of my research and educated guess, is that Seth Rich and his brother Aaron were the two people who leaked the information. We've got Ellen Ratner saying she was, or being named as the cutout. It looks like that is the way that happened, and it's very suspicious that both Donna Brazile and the mayor of Washington, D.C. were at the hospital 5 minutes before Seth Rich's body was brought in.
And that Donna Brazile went on Tim Black's show and dedicated her book to him.
Yeah, absolutely. Called him that poor baby or something to that effect.
That's some real House of Cards shit, man.
Well, yeah. There's no doubt in my mind that Seth Rich was murdered for what he had done. Finding out, I don't know. That's what I have some hope about the Butowski suits. Have you read the Butowski complaint?
I haven't read it.
I'll send it to you. It is fascinating. But yeah, I have smart people on my show, and we have people who are, way smarter than me on this show, and I get to ask them questions like this. And Ray McGovern is very free with his words, and has gone to pretty extensive length giving his opinion on it, and it correlates with the opinion that I just gave you. But of course, he can speak with much more authority because VIPS did an entire investigation on it.
Yeah, well, the Veterans of Intelligence Professionals for Sanity is his group.
Yes.
They've put out a lot of, I'm sure you've seen and read a lot of fantastic pieces about leak versus hack, basically.
Yeah, and Consortium News, and I believe they were Elizabeth Voss's articles, had a series specifically on deconstructing the cybercrime narrative.
So do you guys think Rohrabacher will have to speak in court or be called to testify in this if this sticks, or there can be kind of some suction on this?
I hope so. I don't have much faith in Dana Rohrabacher to do the right thing, but he does seem motivated to get Julian, at least pardoned, if not halting the extradition entirely, repatriating him to Australia, and waiting around until he sues the shit out of everybody for being illegally and arbitrarily detained.
Imagine the reparations that are owed to Julian Assange right now.
There's some redress that needs to happen, and it needs to happen to Chelsea Manning and Jared Hammond and John Kiriakou. There are, a lot of people that have been just ran through this ringer and had their lives completely destroyed by it. And for what? So we can protect war criminals? So we can protect corporations? So we can, hide the fact that every facet of our lives is for sale? All of our information is up for grabs? We had to get Sean O'Brien from the Yale Privacy Lab on here a couple of times just to, keep going over with us how to best encrypt our lives and communicate in a way that at least makes it significantly harder to have someone see and read everything that you do.
Well, absolutely, man. And that's what speaks to kind of the thing that irks me, and I'm sure irks you guys, is the method of disclosure and the fact that we have this information, but then what gets lost in it is the actual data and information itself that we're reading in these emails from WikiLeaks. I mean, the fact that we were able to go through John Podesta's emails and we saw my friend Tulsi Gabbard's name come up in the emails, as you guys know, it is just, it's mind-boggling, and it's just kind of, I don't even know how to put it into words, but like it goes back to a collective shrug. Most American people are like, they just don't give a shit. They don't care what's in the emails. It's like, yeah, here's naked proof of corruption and war crimes and possible pedophilia and all this shit in these emails, and people just don't really care or do anything about it.
As bad as that seems, because it is fucking terrible, that also means that they're not playing for the other side either. That they're just apathetically living their fucking lives. As long as they can have food and a house to live in, they don't really care. So what that does is that allows us to get in and activate people. And whether it's in the form of running for a political office and then not ending your campaign when it's over, and just keep fighting for these things, or whether it's someone who just wants to go around and hang up posters, or someone that'll go to a community event and shake someone's hand. So I think that's the big thing right now, is there just has to be more of us than them. And we have to be able to influence more people readily than they can. And a big part of that is educating people and actually being able to say, well, no, here, let me tell you the truth about that propaganda piece in like a calm and collected way. And so what we're trying to do, and what I've been working on behind the scenes, is setting up teach-ins to connect with any group, whether it's a college group, a local political campaign, a beekeeping association. Women Against Military Madness are helping us out, trying to organize a couple. I just got an email from them just before the vigil. So that's just my solution, and my idea is you just have to get more people involved than they have at this point, because unless they're willing to unleash the hellish weapons of war amongst the population, then as long as we can get normal people doing slightly above average things in the name of anything truthful, then we can start pushing back in a real and effective way.
Guys, I am here. Do I sound okay? Is everything okay now? I want to, somebody say yes or no?
A little echoey.
Okay, I know the echo's really bad.
The internet's better.
Okay. Yeah. So I just want to say sorry, guys, that I'm so late. I've had a lot of things going on. So I'm very confused as to where we are at in the conversation, but I know there was a lot to talk about tonight. We have a big week ahead of us, and I wanted to say too that I want to thank everybody who has donated to our GoFundMe, who has helped us to make this happen. I leave tomorrow for London, and I could not do that if it wasn't for you guys and for all of your help. I'm so grateful, and I also feel very honored that you all would trust in me to cover this very important full extradition hearing. So I just wanted to make sure I thanked everybody who helped us out.
All right, Eric, thank you so much for coming onto the show. Before your segment wraps up, if you could please tell everybody where to find you on social media and any upcoming important events that are going to be on your podcast and when it airs usually.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on. This has been a lot of fun. It's nice to talk to like-minded people who give a shit and who will turn off Netflix, turn off the sports game, and turn their minds on. So you guys give me a lot of hope. It's great to connect with you. Yeah, if you want to follow me on Instagram, I'm active on there. It's Senator Jackman. My Twitter handle is at Jackman Radio, and my YouTube channel is Jackman Radio. And my comedy website to find my Donald Trump impression and all that good stuff, all my videos and all my press. You just go to jackmantrump.com and it's all on there. And yeah, I would just urge everybody to keep fighting on. Obviously, I'm a Tulsi Gabbard guy. I think she's worth supporting. She's our best shot to build a coalition around for someone who's still getting some attention in some press. I mean, I know they're shutting her out, but she's got quite a coalition around here, and we built quite a coalition here in New Hampshire over this last year with libertarians, with Republicans, with former MAGA people, with Democrats, real progressives, anti-war people, pro-legalization people, you know, WikiLeaks supporters, all of that. So I think it's just worthwhile to keep going and keeping our voices out there. So you guys keep doing what you're doing, and Taylor, good luck to you in London. I hope that goes well. You guys do amazing work, and I really appreciate you having me on.
If I could recommend a platform for you to check out, Eric, before you hop off, look up Rockfin.
Okay.
It's a new up-and-coming streaming platform that I don't know exactly how it works, but you basically earn cryptocurrency as people watch your videos.
Okay. Yeah.
And then it's something that you can like bank up in there. And the other creators I've talked to about it have all said that they actually make a good amount of money, comparatively speaking, than what YouTube actually tries to pay out.
Yeah, I know our friend Nico House, Mikasa Sukasa, is on there, and I got the chance to meet him finally here in New Hampshire. We both hosted and co-introduced Tulsi at 2 of our last events here in New Hampshire. And we love Nico. He's a great guy. He's a teller of truth, and definitely a trailblazer there in independent media. So yeah, I'll check that out. Awesome. It's been really great talking to you guys. It's nice to meet you, and I really appreciate what you're doing. Keep fighting the good fight.
Yeah, Eric, I'm sorry I did not get a chance to speak with you. My apologies again, but thank you so much for coming on.
Really absolutely. Yeah, we'll blame Kevin for the sabotage.
But they told you about Kevin?
It's Kevin, it's President Trump here. It's not too late to come on our side and join us and become a leaker, become a whistleblower, okay? You can do it. We believe in you, Kevin, okay? But,
I'm absolutely gonna follow up with you, Eric. I would love to have you on my show here soon.
yeah, anytime.
And,
Love to come on and come back with you guys too anytime.
and thank you very much, man. I really appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank you so much.
All right. Party on, Wayne. Party on, Garth. All right. Thanks, guys. Peace to all of you.
Hi. So that was Eric Jackman. Like I said, I'm unfamiliar with what we had touched on tonight. So guys, why don't one of you pick it up from here?
Yeah, so if we want to start to get into, there were a couple of Australian politicians that recently this week got to visit Julian Assange in Belmarsh. And so we do have some clips to show of that, I believe. Whichever one you want to pull up first. Yes, please.
While we get that queued up real quick, I just want to take a moment to give a shout out to the National Security Agency and any other civilian surveillance organizations that exist inside and outside the government as private or public entities. If you're surveilling us right now, I would definitely encourage you to become a whistleblower. It's never too late to do the right thing, and all it takes is one right decision. There is human infrastructure across the world to support you, and we would love to read those leaks and that information that you can provide for us live here on the air. So
yeah, we actually do want to know what our government is doing in our name and what they're ostensibly doing with our money. We would like to know what major corporations are up to and what, rules, laws, or whatever they're violating. That's integral to even a decent citizenry, not even like a full-blown free flag waving, eagle humping, it's just decent. It is like, that's the decent thing to do. You can do that. It's all right.
I think we have the first clip pulled up. Just some of the main points that these two MPs, they did declare Julian Assange a political prisoner. They did agree with Nils Meltzer's assessment of Julian Assange's psychological torture condition. They do believe he's being targeted as some sort of revenge for revealing U.S. war crimes. And they really did condemn the threat to free speech and free press. And another thing that was interesting, because we've had some back and forth on this, they did say that Assange is confined to 20 plus hours a day, despite being removed from solitary confinement. So we can go ahead and play that first clip.
Former Australian Prime Minister Kevin Rudd. How significant is that politically, the fact that he intervened and said that it was not proportionate for Assange to be extradited?
Look, it is significant that Kevin Rudd has made comments in recent days. It's regrettable, though, that really since the start of this, Australian governments have been either silent or complicit. The current Prime Minister, his two Conservative predecessors, their Labor Party predecessor, they've all been complicit or silent. I think Julian can get some comfort from the fact that we now have a parliamentary group. I think it will increase in size after this visit by George and myself. I think the mood has shifted a little in Australia in recent months. So I'm hopeful that we can continue to build a bit of momentum there, and sooner or later our Prime Minister, who's a fairly practical sort of fellow, sooner or later he's going to realise that the political tide is turning against him on this, and that he needs to start sticking up for an Australian strife overseas.
Do Australians care what Kevin Rudd says? I mean, when he came out and said that it was disproportionate, is that significant in the political sphere in Australia? Oh, look,
of course it's significant when a next Prime Minister of Australia says anything. Will Scott Morrison change his position because of something Kevin Rudd says? No. But Scott Morrison, though, is pragmatic enough politically to understand that as public support for Assange grows, as the number of parliamentarians who are concerned about the injustice increase, that sooner or later, he's going to have to start seriously considering changing his position.
Thank you very much.
So in that clip, we heard Andrew Wilkie talk about how there is growing support in Australia, and there is a Bring Julian Assange parliamentary group in Australia that the former MP Kevin Rudd is part of, and he really talked about how the Australian government has continuously failed Assange since 2010, essentially. I don't know if you guys want to have any thoughts.
Yeah,
on
I do
that.
have something to say about this. Yeah, we are seeing more. I'm so sorry. I'm still adjusting this stuff. We are seeing more support from people in Australia. These two MPs, George Christensen and then Andrew Wilkie. And we are also seeing a lot of activists working really hard to bring awareness to Julian Assange, specifically People for Assange, and also Candles for Assange, which is our friend Alex. I know that at this point, it is on the Australian government to actually intervene. I believe they are obligated to do so.
And also too, there's Melbourne for Assange. There is, I can't remember the full name, but Ian Rose's Sydney Coalition.
There's a Brisbane group.
Yeah, so there is a ton of Free Julian Assange groups out there protesting or planning to protest. I believe they've had projectors up.
Yeah, the Brisbane group is going to, on the wall, I believe, of their parliament, they're going to project the collateral murder video.
And that's powerful. Like, that's incredible. If you have the ability to help us do something like that in DC, please come and join us. Do that with us. We're on a very shoestring budget right now trying to get all of that together. So if you have that technology and that capability, please bring that to share with us in this, because it's something that if we can do that here and it's happening there and it's going to be happening in Belmarsh prison, we can get these things happening all over the world at the same time and build so much collective power as the oppressed citizenry of the world at this point.
So we've got the next clip ready. Are all these Mo's? So yeah, all of the gentleman who's asking the questions is Mohammed Almazi, the talented independent journalist that I mentioned earlier in the show. Tarek Haddad, Gordon, as often as he can get down there, are just entrenched in front of Belmarsh, and Taylor is going to be stoked because they're her crew there.
They are. I am going out here alone, but I will be working with Tarek Haddad. He actually just published an article about the alleged offer that was given to Julian Assange by this former congressperson from California at the direction of Donald Trump. He just wrote about that at thewatchdog.net. Now that is where our coverage will be posted. It will also be posted on my personal YouTube channel as well. I'll get into that later on, but I just wanted to make sure, go to thewatchdog.net. Tarek Haddad's stuff is there, his work rather, and that's where we will post all of this information, and also on the YouTube channel. And Action for Assange, of course. That's a given.
So, roll clip.
I imagine you're keen to know our impressions of his health and well-being. Look, he's clearly a man under a lot of pressure. I'm not a doctor, I couldn't diagnose him, but I have no reason to doubt the assessment of the United Nations Special Rapporteur on Torture, Professor Nils Melzer, when he said that Julian exhibits the signs of someone who has undergone psychological torture. He's supposedly not in solitary confinement these days, but he tells me that he's still spending more than 20 hours a day confined to his room. I think for all intents and purposes, it's a reasonable person would say that is still solitary confinement. He's under a lot of pressure. We spoke about his family and about the issue, and I walk out of Belmarsh in absolutely no doubt that he has become a political prisoner in this country, and that the US is determined to extradite him to the US to get even. And the solution, I think, must be political. This is madness that the UK is even entertaining having a court case. The UK should be saying, and the British Prime Minister Boris Johnson should be saying to the US President, back off. This is an unreasonable move by the US administration. And I think the Australian Prime Minister, he says he's a mate of Donald Trump. Well, he should get on the phone to Donald Trump. He should get on the phone to Boris Johnson and say, this is an Australian citizen who, when you boil it down, has done nothing more than act as a journalist and a publisher and publish information in the public interest that includes hard evidence of US war crimes, and it is completely and utterly unacceptable to have him facing 17 counts of espionage and 1 count of computer hacking. There was no espionage, there was no hacking, it was just a person doing the right thing and publishing important information in the public interest. And frankly, it is an international scandal that he's locked up in there in those conditions as a political prisoner.
Okay, so in that clip, he actually said that Scott Morrison should be getting on the phone with Trump, especially if they're such good friends, and Boris Johnson, and demanding that that Julian Assange is not extradited to the United States. He's a person who did the right thing by publishing these war crimes. And do you guys have any thoughts on that clip?
He said it's not espionage, it's not hacking, it's a person doing the right thing. That statement should become, wherever he's most effective, that meme should just populate the areas, saturate them with that quote.
As a journalist too,
it gives me more hope going into this extradition hearing that there is a rising tide of support for Julian Assange among the class of people that have been most affected by WikiLeaks. And that's important because they're ultimately the gatekeepers to how effective we are as activists.
in fact, as a journalist, I would say it would be quite immoral for Julian Assange to receive this information, have that knowledge, know it's true, and then choose not to publish it. That would be the inappropriate thing to do. So he absolutely did the right thing. That he did the ethical and moral thing.
Exactly. Exactly. Do we have one more clip, Josh, that we want to show?
Just been speaking with Julian Assange for over an hour and a half, or about an hour and a half, and in that time it was quite clear to see he's a man under great pressure. Being locked up for that length of time without human contact, it obviously takes its toll. Julian outlined to us his version of events, I guess, and his take on great degree of emphasis on certain facts that are going to come to light during the extradition hearing. And
is it playing?
That being the case, I do not know that there is a way.
I was just watching you in freeze frame there for a minute. It was pretty funny.
Could ever be imprisoned or ever
yeah, no, I know. So with this though, with these MPs coming here and with them doing this, this is one of the first times in modern history, basically, like in the last span of this battle, that the Australian government, even just as this motion with these few MPs, has really done anything to protect Julian. There's been great work done by Bean and all the people out there with the Bring Julian Home campaign, and I'm just so glad that it's reached these members of parliament out there. I think one of the biggest things, aside from the influence of like big money and all of these terrible things on them, is just the blatant lack of knowledge that these people have on Julian Assange. So just seeing these guys out there able to answer these kinds of questions with this much dedication to understanding it really warms my heart.
Yeah, and it was, we have heard reports that Julian's health was getting better. And I think being out of solitary confinement, we were all hoping that that would increase. But it sounds like he is still being held in his cell. And they did mention that his mental state isn't good. So when we hear things like this about Julian, and especially 4 days away from his extradition hearing, it is a little discouraging. But it is also encouraging to see these politicians actually get to Belmarsh like they promised a few months ago, and the support gather more and more in Australia.
What Andrew said is exactly right. I mean, we've just been speaking with Julian Assange for over an hour and a half, or about an hour and a half, and in that time it's quite clear to see he's a man under great pressure. Being locked up for that length of time without human contact, it obviously takes its toll. Julian outlined to us his version of events, I guess, and his take on the allegations, and I've got to say that with a great degree of emphasis on certain facts that are going to come to light during the extradition hearing, and that being the case, I do not know that there is a way that Julian fairly and justly could ever be imprisoned or ever be extradited. It is quite clear, as Andrew says, this is extremely and utterly highly political. The one thing that Julian did mention to us, was that he takes heart by the fact that Boris Johnson has recently made the comments that he has about the imbalance in the US treaty arrangements, and with the commentary that is made on the UK protecting whistleblowers and journalists. And I guess there's a degree of hope with that kind of language, and I'm also hopeful that Prime Minister Johnson will follow through on what he said there and actually intervene in this case. That would be what I'm calling for as a visiting Aussie MP. I also think that there is more that the Australian government can do, and I think when we hear some of the stuff that's going to come to light next week, there's more that will be done. Ultimately, the consular assistance that's been offered may be helpful, but what now needs to happen is diplomatic back channels open, diplomatic arrangements made for this to cease. It is highly political. It's one of ours, as I've said earlier today. He's an Aussie, he's not a Brit, he's not an American, he's an Aussie, and he should be returned home.
So here we have yet again another set of politicians talking about how Assange will not be fairly extradited or even fairly imprisoned in the United States. And we've been talking about this. Other whistleblowers have been talking about this, that we know the trial in the United States would not be A, public, and B, would have no justice. And at the last case management hearing, last month, I believe it was, we found out about the special administrative measures that would be put on Julian's legal team and himself, and they would not be allowed to talk to the press about anything that was happening during this hearing in the United States.
Okay, so this was the last clip of Mo's we're gonna play. He actually like talked it up a little bit, and this is not a guy who's quick to brag on his own work. So looking forward to it. I haven't even seen it yet.
Yeah. So to what extent has your experience informed your decision to follow up on this case with Assange?
Yeah, look, Probably many people aren't aware of that background. I'll try and recap in one sentence. So I was an intelligence official working for the Australian government. I resigned about a week before the invasion of Iraq in 2003 and went public about my concerns about the fraudulent case for war that was being made by the Australian government and other governments. So I suppose you'd call me a whistleblower, and it does inform my response to Julian Assange. In fact, Julian reminded me that we actually met in Melbourne at a book event not long after I resigned and before he set up WikiLeaks. So we're kind of peas in a pod. We both believe that misconduct should be publicised, that the public has a right to know when governments do wrong in our name. And it does help to explain my special interest in Julian Assange and my support for WikiLeaks.
Does the Australian government
Yeah, I guess nobody ever asks Andrew Wilkie about being a whistleblower. And yet here we have him saying, you know, I feel a kinship with Julian Assange. We're peas in a pod. Like, that's a highly motivational reason to go out and speak out and raise the alarm about what's happening. I can't believe nobody asked him that. So hats off to Mo for raising that point. And for him to have spoken out about Iraq right before they actually went and invaded and destabilized and continue to do so to Iraq. You know, that's it was rare back in 2003 if somebody spoke out against the Iraq war, and he went out and blew the whistle on it. So hell yeah.
And that's exceptional courage, because you don't stand up against the military-industrial complex without them standing up back against you. So having him still be in a position to make these kinds of statements is awesome. But one of the other things I want to point out is the accessibility of these public figures, because that's something that we don't really have here in the United States. You don't see any of our politicians going overseas to do things like this. You don't see even our politicians just accessible to their own constituents to be asked questions like this. So I think that that's a really important distinction to make between the way that these MPs have responded, which is incredible, versus the way that the majority of our politicians respond, which is just dead silence.
Or a back turning and walking away, or the absolute wrong answer because either they live in a bubble of reinforced propaganda, and that's just what they know, they believe when they sit in a House Select Intelligence Committee meeting or a Senate Intelligence Committee meeting. They believe what known professional liars are telling them because they have a number of reasons to do so. Their career, their lobbyist gig after they're done being a Congress critter, or, you know, whatever hedge fund or board they go to. So it's in their best interest to take what these known liars say and go out and repeat it. So yeah, for Andrew Wilkie to be in the Intelligence Committee and then go from that to being a member of Parliament is fascinating to me.
So we did talk a little bit about the projecting image that was happening. They're going to do it in Australia in the next few days. I believe this weekend they're going to do some projecting on different buildings. And we just wanted to show what was done in the UK recently, and it was tweeted out on the Don't Extradite Assange Twitter account. And if you have a projector and you live near DC, please get in touch with us because we would love to do something like this in DC next week.
Radio Horse 1-8, have 5 to 6 individuals with AK-47s. Request permission to engage. Let me know when you gather. We'll shoot. Light them all up.
002 traffic 260.
Come on, fire. Hey, Roger. Oh yeah, look at those dead bastards. Nice.
Will the Prime Minister agree with the parliamentary report that's going to the Council of Europe that this extradition should be opposed and the rights of journalists and whistleblowers upheld for the good of all of us?
Roger, we have a black SUV or bongo truck picking up the bodies. Request permission to engage. 1-8, engage. Clear. Come on. Clear. We're engaged. Coming around clear. Roger. Trying to, oh yeah, look at that, right through the windshield.
There were kids in that van. In that van that pulled up, that got shot. There were 2 kids in that van that spent 8 hours in the custody of the U.S. military, taken to a military hospital, U.S. military hospital, refused service, taken hours to an Iraqi civilian hospital, and then left. And their story ended with the United States and for what they cared about.
Yeah, we don't exactly know what happened to those children after that. And I do believe they were on their way to school in that van.
And the man stopped to essentially pick up the bodies and help the wounded because he just saw this attack happen.
Yeah, having collateral murder projected onto a building like this is like very dramatic, but so powerful. I don't think enough people remember that this video was released by WikiLeaks, that this video was released by Julian Assange, and that this video is part of these indictments. This is what the US doesn't want to come out. This is what they want to put Julian Assange away for 175 years for.
And this is just such a small piece of it, because you also have in these same prosecutions, I believe, Nancy Pelosi being read in on torture in like 2003 and 2005, I believe, in that time frame. You have Neera Tanden saying that she wants to take the profits out of the Middle East and use them to lower our deficits so we can keep engaging in the world. That's why they're being prosecuted. And that's why the people that have sworn loyalty oaths to political factions aren't standing up for these people, because by being a good Democrat, it means you are protecting the bad war criminals, because that is who runs that political party. And that is also who runs the Republican Party, just to be perfectly clear about that.
Yeah, it's one party, and it's a party of war, and it's a party of money, and it's a party of exploitation, whether it's labor or literal children. And that's it. You've got a rigged system in a duopoly, and people honestly think if they throw more money at a candidate and vote harder, it will change. And that candidate doesn't even address the systemic problem of global intelligence, and that the House and the Senate are way down on the list in terms of who's really writing the legislation. There was a fantastic episode of One versus Five Eyes that broke this down. If you haven't watched that series, please go watch that series. It's Susie Dawson's YouTube channel, Susie3D. Those teach-ins should be part of every activist toolkit. And when Action for Assange goes and starts producing our teach-ins, it is going to be trying to achieve that standard. That it's a very high bar, but I feel like with the team that we have here, including Sleepy Josh, we have the capability to really put together an excellent series.
Yeah, as you guys know, there will be a significant break in between the first week of the extradition hearing and the second half beginning. I believe May 18th is still the date that begins. So we are trying to plan as many things as we can come together and team up with others to do to keep this story alive, to keep Julian and Chelsea's story alive, and to make sure the media does not forget about them during this interim between the extradition hearing weeks.
Yeah, I also want to make note of as well, you know, we are in the midst of election season, and it's very easy to forget about so many other issues, including, of course, this case, Julian Assange's case, tensions with Iran, Venezuela, homelessness, climate crisis, so many issues. It's so easy to forget, to get lost in this never-ending election cycle, which is by design. And let me tell you guys, I am sure that there is going to be more scandals or made up hysteria on a weekly basis, at least when it comes to this election. It's a great way to distract people. Don't fall for it. We won't. We will be talking about this case every week. And if you do, I think everybody should, of course, pay attention to the election. If that is something you are interested in, then go to the Convo Couch. That is where you get the best election coverage in independent media.
So, by all means, vote locally. You have more of an ability to affect politics at the local level. Statewide elections, at least in California, with the party that we have in charge and the way that they run their little mafia there, it's not easy to get a state representative here that will actually represent us. Federal elections, we know they're rigged. We have proof that they're rigged. The reason that we're on this show right now is why we have proof that they're rigged. But to be perfectly honest, I don't know if I ever participated in a free and fair election. I don't see how that's possible. 2000 was rigged in ways that we don't really even know. 2004, we had Karl Rove having a meltdown on Fox News because Ohio didn't go.
Hey, he is the guy with the white, he uses whiteboards too,
That was
by the way.
But yeah, 2012. But ever since we've implemented completely hackable, completely programmable, private sourced or privatized software voting machines, there's no reason to think we have free and fair elections.
And I would rather see people organize to take power back in their cities than hack election machines and throw it all to hell, honestly. Because all that does is create a larger set of circumstances for people like us fighting against the national security state, I guess. And that's something I'm honestly like horrified of, is just like a false flag, straight up election hacking, different numbers everywhere on every different computer system, which is basically
Oh, you mean like Iowa?
Right.
Like they're getting ready to do in Nevada, where they're posting tweets like, hey, if anybody's, you know, kind of techie, we could use some help working the bugs out of this brand new app they just gave us for the caucus. Are you kidding me? Hey, look.
This one's made by Genocide Inc. Shadow Inc. went out of business after.
Oh, yeah, it's Genocide Inc. It's not Deep State Limited.
No. That's the parent company.
Okay. You know what? Like, we have parent companies called Alphabet Inc. The parent company for, or at least the people that put up the money for Shadow Inc. is called Acronym. We live in a cartoon. We do. We live in a cartoon. One of the richest man in the world looks like Lex Luthor.
But at least Bernie Sanders had an app.
He had an app.
Hey, fighting the deep state.
I saw that the recanvass that the Iowa Democratic Party did still had Pete Buttigieg in the winning.
I think Bernie has asked for another recount. I'm not sure though if that's actually going to happen.
Neat.
He should just ask for a whole new political party.
Tap yourself out on lawyers.
Political party in 2016.
Right? Oh my God. You know what, man? They didn't even let Bernie know they were coming to bring him the petition to draft Bernie to start a People's Party. There was no communication with Bernie Sanders that event was taking place. None.
It's because he's subservient. He will always capitulate to the will of the people who feed him, and that is the war criminal class that is directly above him in the halls of power. So the compromise he is willing to make is, fuck all, the world is burning, let's get some people health care. And I'm not willing to make that compromise. Like, I would be willing to give the National Nurses Union control of our health care. But I'm not willing to give Nancy Pelosi and Neera Tanden and Mitch McConnell and Jim Jordan and all of these other fucking war criminals control of the health of my body.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. That is one thing about the government being in control of this, or having a government-run system, that does make me think twice. And it was, in fact, you, Andrew and Christy, that brought that up. And I thought that's a great point. It does concern me. As far as Bernie Sanders goes, I know we've talked about him quite a bit, and I believe I mentioned this on the vigil last week, but you know, the fact that he feels that he's unable to even address this issue is really serious to me, and it's really something that we should be reflecting on as to why a presidential candidate feels so fearful of the deep state and the I think Jason Burmis calls it the predator class, which I think is a really clever way to put it. This class of people, why he feels so fearful of them that he can't even say that he will fight for our First Amendment rights. And he's not, again, the reason we are talking about him specifically is because he is the front runner right now. He should know better. And he also was given a gift by WikiLeaks because they proved that he was cheated in 2016. And that is why he should be speaking out about this. And also just because it's the right thing to do.
You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him fight back against global tyranny. So we have the Amnesty International article queued up. If you could pull that up, Josh.
Sorry, watching that like roll in Steve's head and the laughter was priceless.
The Amnesty petition?
Yeah, it's under maintenance right now. It says you'll be able to take action for Julian Assange again, 11 a.m. Friday, 21st February. Amnesty International is
Can we show that? Can we pull that up on screen?
Sure. Amnesty International is a little bit late to the party.
A little bit. I know many supporters have been asking Amnesty for anything, just something. Just come out. Come on.
Yeah.
We were even talking about Amnesty as a location for DC because they hadn't seriously come out and said anything.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate if anybody from Amnesty International is watching the vigil tonight, please come join us in DC Monday through Friday. We have events planned for the whole week. We would love to see you out there. You guys know hopefully better than I do who all the sponsors are. Andrew, you might have a list. We want to
get a
go
list,
through that.
Yeah, we've got Veterans for Peace. We've got the Ohio State Green Party, Women Against Military Madness, Code Pink, the Freedom of Free Speech Society, Unity for J, One versus 5I. Am I missing anybody, Andrew?
Yes. So Ian Schlackman has done a great job at helping build support throughout the area too. He has Baltimore Peace Action joining us, the Youth Against War and Racism, Struggle La Luce, People's Power Assembly Baltimore, and the Socialist Unity Party. Thank you. Thank you to Ian. Thank you so much for joining us and helping us and participating in this, because we're trying to build a post-ist, post-ism movement specifically designed so we can get back to having real conversations about what these ists and isms are to progress forward as a society.
I just want to do a quick shout out. There are other people behind the scenes that are helping us plan DC. I don't know if they want their names on air, but many of them are part of the Denver Action for Assange group. And we have other people from Unity for J that are helping out. We have a lot of people that have been helping us for months plan this out. We're talking graphics, permits, helping us pick locations. And again, they're volunteering just like we are. So there is an amazing crew of people coming down to DC. And if you're going to be there, we can't wait to meet you. We can't wait to protest with you. And I think one of the cool things about being an activist in the online world is when you get to meet the people you work with and you talk to in real life. And I think it's going to be a morale booster for all of us to be in one place together. And I say that carefully because this is obviously not a great thing that's happening next week. We're not happy that Julian is facing extradition, but we are happy that we have such an amazing movement and so many people coming together to help pull this off.
And as far as the London team, we have people in the UK who are working really hard behind the scenes, and people in the US who have been working to kind of put this whole project together. It is a lot of work covering this over there, especially when really there's like 2 journalists that are doing all of this. We have a lot of people behind us. And again, you could catch all of that coverage on thewatchdog.net. Again, that is thewatchdog.net. And then also on my YouTube channel, Taylor Hudak Live, which is also through the MCSC network. And I'm so grateful that Nico House took me on. I'm very, very excited to be joining their team. They do some great work, and to be talking about these issues and be that voice on that network. You could find my stuff there as well. And like I said earlier, Tara Kadad has already published, I believe this is the first article on that website. So yeah, I mean, there's people, like, we've been working so hard. Like these past few weeks have been very intense for us, but we are so, so happy to do it. But it has been intense, and it's been, I think we'll look back one day and say, wow, we can't believe that we were able to get through some of this. But yeah, we do it because we want to, and the fact that we, persevere through all the challenges, and there are many challenges, the fact that we could get through that really shows how strong this movement is. And there is so much support for Julian, and there's more and more support for him. And I look forward, hopefully in the coming weeks, to see more people in the corporate media stand up for Julian Assange and show support for him. Of course, we would have liked to seen this earlier, but instead of focusing on that, want to focus on the fact that people are standing up and highlighting the positive around this, because that gets more people to want to join our movement when we talk about all the positive around this. Like the 130 German politicians who signed an article that just went smoothly, I guess. Steve just brought that up. There's another article we want to talk to you guys about. We've seen a lot of support in Germany in particular. It's fantastic. Politicians, I believe artists, journalists, all came together to kind of put together this, I don't know exactly what they call it. It's not like an open letter or a petition, but it's some sort of written body of something that it is
demanding the immediate release for Julian Assange, and it has been signed by 22,000 other supporters as well. Yeah, like Taylor said, in Europe, there is a very big campaign moving to free Assange, and Germany in particular is one of the leading countries. We have the German, the Free Assange German campaign. You can find them on Twitter. And so this is a really cool action that's coming out. And we're seeing more and more of these. We're seeing the doctors for Assange, the lawyers for Assange, journalists for Assange. I've actually lost count of how many open letters and petitions there are going around now. And normally I have a good count on those. So, but that's a good thing. It's a good problem to have, that so many different groups are coming out. So many different countries are showing their support. It's pretty amazing.
And if you're going to be one of those people that has to have political conversations anyways, when you go to the doctor, don't ask them about Medicare for all, because you know that they're going to be in support of it because they're a fucking doctor. Ask them to sign the Doctors for Assange letter and get involved with that and talk to them about that movement. Because that's something that people don't hear about and people don't know about, that we have to be the voice for. So just to piggyback off that, because I thought that was really, really nice with all of these growing movements.
And that is something totally that it's such an Andrew thing to like go to the doctor and like have to like be so involved in your activism that you can't hold it back at a doctor's office. It's so you. No, Andrew's awesome. I mean, he is the one that actually came up with the name for this group. It really started with him, and then I kind of just said, hey, let's make this something. But really it was all his idea and his thoughts behind all of this. So we wouldn't have any of this today if it wasn't for you. So again, thank you. You're really good at working with others too.
I'm going to be honest. I talked about this movement and activism in a job interview. So yeah, I'm starting to turn into one of those people that it doesn't matter who I'm talking to. I talk about Julian Assange.
I'm in line at the grocery store and it'll happen. Yeah. That's awesome. Lumberyard today at work.
But that's why our society's been ravaged.
Yard dudes.
Like that's why they've put up these walls and barriers and made everyone divide themselves and back into corners and made everyone's words mean different things. And it's because it's dangerous to the power establishment for us to have these simple conversations, for us to say, how do you feel about torture? Because you say that and it's unacceptable. But if you talk about the football game, it's fine. So be that awkward person. Like I'm sitting at my job right now and I have a free Julian Assange sign up on my wall. And every once in a while, one of the people that I work with asks me about it. So I tell them, hey, this is what's going on with this guy. So just the little things to spark basic conversations with the other real humans in your life goes a really long way.
Andrew Smith, awkward puppet master.
Try my best.
Yeah. Glad to know you, man. Really am. Do we have a next item? Or are we gonna?
I think we have the RSF sounding the alarm on Julian's health.
That's, I think, our last item.
Maybe.
Yeah.
And the RSF is Reporters Without Borders.
Yeah, and they've made a statement concerning Julian's health. And that should be up here. And again, another agreement with Nils Meltzer, and that there has been inhumane treatment, and I'm not sure how many groups have to agree on that Julian Assange is being psychologically tortured before the corporate media and these countries start believing it and start being held accountable. Clearly, we got to get more. But
I'm sorry, did we talk about the doctor's latest letter from a few days ago? The doctors group wrote another letter to the UK government. This is now the fourth letter. The first two were to the UK government. And then the third one was to the Australian government, asking them to intervene in this situation. They've just issued now a fourth one, basically reiterating the fact that Julian has been subjected to torture, and they are calling upon UK authorities and those with the power to do so to ensure that he is taken to a university hospital. So that's just an update. Again, follow that group on Twitter at doctors4 Assange.
You can see Nils Melzer's hand in the majority of these, politicians coming forward, doctors coming forward, lawyers coming forward. I honestly believe that Nils Melzer's interview finally got Amnesty International over the hump to the point to where they released it. I don't know if they're going to go much further with that. I hope so. I had heard something about the ACLU as well.
They have issued a statement. They did issue a statement. I'm not exactly sure what it says or how in depth. It may even be like a letter, but they've shown their support.
So basically, the lone holdout at this point is the Press Freedom Foundation.
Right.
Well, didn't the Press Freedom Foundation allow Courage Foundation to host an event there for Julian recently too? Didn't that happen in DC? Or am I thinking of the wrong?
That was a National Press Club.
Okay, I was thinking of the wrong thing. I'm sorry.
Yeah, they just used their venue at the National Press Club. Oh yeah, I actually, guys, I think that they're all, well, I think they may be planning some more, I'm not sure, but go to these Courage Foundation events to bring awareness to Julian Assange's case. They're fascinating. They really are. I mean, I went to 2 of them, and both times I learned very different information. They had 2 journalists that were on the panel just in New York. And I also got to meet Laura Genovese. She's so sweet. I got to meet her. That was awesome. And that goes back to Christy's point of when you get to meet people who you work with and people who are passionate about these issues in real life, it's really special. But yes, I encourage everybody to go to these events and also follow the Courage Foundation on Twitter. They do great work helping whistleblowers fight their legal cases. You could follow them at Courage Found. And you could also watch these events. If you are interested in watching them, you can catch them on Courage Foundation's YouTube channel.
And we have been working with Courage Foundation. We are hoping weather allotted to display some of the We Are Millions photos while we're in DC, and also weather permitting to have our own photo booth to allow people to do their own photos holding the signs of the We Are Millions campaign. So we're really proud to bring that, and we're hoping for good weather so that we can pull that one off too.
It looks like it might be a false spring, which means we might get some cherry blossoms, and we might get rained on.
I'm gonna miss you guys. I wish I could be there to meet all of you, but
you're gonna miss meeting Jason. We might have to just
Jason Burmis is gonna come down.
I know. I feel bad. I won't get to meet you guys, but I'll get to meet so many others in the UK, and I'm really excited about that. And we have some awesome interviews. We will be covering imperialism on trial on Tuesday. I'm doing interviews after that, which is very exciting.
Did we get permission to broadcast imperialism on trial?
What?
Did we get permission to broadcast imperialism on trial for them?
So that is taken care of, I think, because that'll be fine. I mean, I'm not really worried about the broadcast. Well, I mean, it would be really cool to broadcast it, but I'm more concerned with getting interviews afterwards, because I think it's going to be broadcast anyways. And then also too, I'm not sure if my phone can handle that for like 3 hours.
They typically do stream those events, I believe. So yeah. All right, guys. Do we have any other
event?
What's that?
Who's putting on the event?
It's Greg Sharkey has done a series of imperialism on trial events in the UK.
Okay.
Do we have any other news?
Foundation streams theirs.
Yeah.
Don't forget, the United Kingdom has rolled out facial recognition with the Metro Police Department. Fuck the Metro Police Department and fuck facial recognition. Work in your communities to get facial recognition banned. It's happened multiple times already across the US and around the world. Completely achievable, super simple thing. You can get UV makeup, you can wear face masks, you can put cool little fancy triangle paints all over your face and other stuff to avoid facial recognition programs.
Bring an umbrella.
According to the UK police, if you try to obscure yourself from facial recognition technology, it doesn't flag you. It probably flags you. So just be careful. Yeah, we have a bunch of events coming up if I can give those some shout outs.
Yeah, so there are going to be events all over the world starting on Saturday with the London event and the march to the Parliament Square. Roger Waters is going to be there. There is a very big list for cities that are holding events on February 24th. I don't know if we want to read all those, but we most certainly can.
It's the city names. I won't do like locations.
Okay. Yeah, you can follow Unity for Jane, Candles for Assange for a complete list and constant updates on events as we're getting fed into them on Twitter.
Yeah, so we have London, Auckland, Wellington, Brisbane, Sydney, Hobart, Nowra, Melbourne, Adelaide, Seoul, Athens, I can't pronounce that, and somewhere in Slovenia, Nice, Vienna, Amsterdam, Bern, Brussels, a second London event, Dublin. There's an event going on in Denver. There's New York City. There's Scotland, Washington, D.C., San Francisco, Mexico, and 2 separate events in Mexico City. We're coordinating behind the scenes with a couple different organizers for these events. So that way, as their events go live around the world, we can go live and show them to you. So we will be highlighting the global protests, starting with the New Zealand, Australia areas, which are going to be getting into their February 4th when it's the 3rd here in the US, 23rd here in the US. So we'll be able to live stream their events before we even go out into the streets in DC.
One of our viewers, Christian Stepaniak, is asking about Glenn Greenwald's recent tweets about Julian and WikiLeaks. Any thoughts on that, guys?
I haven't personally read them to get the full synopsis of what he was saying. I know the chat was talking about it earlier. So unless you guys have read them from today, we'll definitely go check those out.
You know, I really didn't get, I saw them, I like glanced at them, but I don't have enough, I didn't really look at them closely to provide any meaningful analysis on it. But Glenn Greenwald, of course, is an investigative journalist that supports WikiLeaks. He was just recently charged with a very similar charge to the one that Julian Assange is facing, specifically conspiracy to commit computer intrusion. They have since dropped that charge, which is great news. But as far as the tweets, I'm not too sure. Again, it's been really, really busy. Like up until the point that we even like got together to do this vigil tonight, we've been working on the next week, like all day long, every day. So it's been a little bit more difficult to pay attention to these other things that we normally probably would be paying attention to. That will resume after this next week wraps up. Are there any last things that we want to touch on before we close out, guys?
I can read these 2 tweets here real quick.
Okay.
So Glenn said Glenn said that so many are uncritically accepting at face value the claims of Assange's lawyers in court as she tries to prevent her client's extradition to US to face the Trump administration's indictment is sheer madness, but indicative of how brains break in the US when Russia is uttered. To recap, the Obama administration refused to indict Assange over the 2010 Manning leaks, seeing it as a threat to press freedom. The Trump administration ignored that concern and concocted a theory to criminalize Assange for publishing these documents. Most Democrats side with the Trump administration.
Well, I think he's totally right. Most Democrats do side with the Trump administration. Again, like we've said many times on the vigil, when they have the perfect opportunity to stand up to Trump, who they claim to disagree with on just about everything, and especially when they've been highly critical of his commenting about CNN being fake news and his assault on the free press, when they have the chance to actually stand up to that, they choose not to. So that tells you a lot about them. It tells you a lot about these establishment Democrats who are really just Republicans.
Well, they choose to create talking points, so that way when things like this happen, they can have something to reference back to.
Yeah, they
like
need there to be a problem.
Yeah, the Jim Acosta bullshit, right? So that allows them to say, ooh, Trump's attacking the media, and already have that like a thing that they all talked about that's been ran a whole bunch of times, but then also gives all of these bullshit establishment figures a way to write an article saying, oh, I defended free speech. Look at how I helped Jim Acosta get back into the White House press room and shit like that. So, but that's really what they do. And
no, it's just such a ridiculous thing that they claim that is like a victory of them standing up for free press. I didn't mean to laugh. This is very serious, but that to me, it was just too much. Okay, so I guess we are ready to wrap it up. Guys, I'm really sorry that I was not able to be here for the entire night. My internet is so bad. I don't know what's wrong. Like, I'm on a different laptop right now on the same internet, and it's fine, but it won't work on mine. It's very frustrating. I'll figure that out before our next vigil so that doesn't happen again. Tomorrow morning at 9:15 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, I will be on Fault Lines with Lee Stranahan talking about my coverage in London, and then also what took place today with this, what happened in this hearing earlier today specifically, and how this former congressperson allegedly claimed that he was told to speak with Julian on behalf of President Trump. All of that, I will get into that tomorrow on Lee Stranahan. Again, that's at 9:15 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I want to thank everybody for pitching in again to our GoFundMe. I could not have done this. None of us could have done this without you guys. I could not make it to London without you. I leave tomorrow for London. I get there Friday morning very, very early. So I will let everybody know once I get there on Twitter. And yeah, I kick off my coverage Saturday morning with these events in London at 11:30 at Australia House. There's a march. I will be filming that. Again, you can catch that on thewatchdog.net, and then also my YouTube channel, which I will put in the link, or I'll link it. Okay, I can't link it. It's Taylor Hudak Live, and I will try to get that out to you guys. Again, it's with the MCSC network, but we will be doing live streams in the evening. Again, that's London time. Tarek and I will be doing that. We will have some guests on, some really, really awesome guests. You guys are going to want to tune into this. It'll be afternoon your time in the US. And then later in the evening, I will be also doing an interview with Graham Elwood just to recap the day. Maybe a live stream, depends if our internet connection works. But if not, I'll be doing a pre-recorded video with him on his channel. And then I may be streaming on his channel as well, but I'm not 100% sure. But that's something that we are looking into. I'm sure if you follow him, which I know all of you guys do, he will give you some more details on that. So again, thank you all for helping make this happen. I know this was a really long wrap up, but there was a lot I wanted to say to let you guys know of. And I look forward to covering this full extradition hearing. And I am hopeful that everything is going to come out on the side of justice.
My name's Andrew Smith. You can follow me on Twitter at Andrew Zigman. When you go on Lee's show, when you go on Fault Lines, make sure you ask that if the three of us or one of us every day or something can come in the studio live in the mornings to do like a recap of the day before and what's planned the day ahead. I think that would be really cool if you could ask him about that.
Yes, I will.
Awesome.
I will.
But yeah, thank you to everybody for watching.
My name is Christy Doff. You can follow me on Twitter at Christy Doff. I'm a regular contributor also on the YouTube channel D Pierce SSC. And just this week, Doc Rolu and I, we unveiled the overwritten report. The first episode is there, so you can go to his YouTube channel and subscribe and watch that there. We will see you in DC, and we are looking forward to meeting many of you in person.
I was muted. Big thank you to Eric Jackman for coming on to the show tonight. I had a great time talking to that guy. I hope he comes back. Thanks to Mohammed Almazi for providing the clips of his interviews, which are fascinating. You should go and read his work and see all of the interviews that he's posted on his Twitter page. My name is Steve Poikinen. I host a show called Slow News Day. You can find it here on the YouTubes at Slow News Day Podcast. Type it into the search bar. It's like a Tribe Called Quest. You got to do the whole thing. I do not use mainstream material as the baseline for my content. I go out of my way to use independent sources. If I can find the journalists who write the material that I source, I have them on as guests. I'm on Twitter at Slow News Day Show. I cannot wait to meet some of you. Hopefully, a lot of you come to DC. We're going to make an impact, and I look forward to that. Thank you all for being here. Thank everybody that donated to GoFundMe. You guys are freaking incredible. And yeah, we love you. We'll see you next time. Good luck to us all.